Are we in a simulation? You tell me.
In fact, I'd say that I'm 70% sure that we will get to the simulation point, which means I think there's a 70% chance we're living inside a simulation. And so the point is, if they already got there, they created a whole bunch of simulation. And you can't tell the difference whether you're in the real world or a simulated world, right? So there's 99 of these, there's one of these, but you can't tell the difference. So which one are you more likely in? Just statistically speaking now, we're not even projecting the technology forward. We're just saying it's more likely you're in one of the 99 than the one because there's so many more of these. So I started to think about how long would it take us to build something like the Matrix, something that's so immersive that you would forget, right, that you were inside a video game. And so that led me to this idea of the simulation point, which is a kind of technological singularity. But then I started to research things like quantum physics and some of the mysteries around, the observer effect and quantum mechanics. And then I started to look at all the world's religions, and I realized that they're all kind of saying the same thing, which is that there is no physical universe. And so, that led me to the conclusion that we are most likely inside some kind of a computer simulation or a math.
But yet he doesn't feel that way. How can I prove it? Because he said 99% of the time we're probably in a simulation. But at the beginning, he said he only feels this way 70% of the time. That means 1/3 of the time he wakes up and says, that's all bullshit.
You know how people say proof that we live in a simulation is that you never see your neighbors bringing in their groceries?
I've never heard that.
I counter with, everyone tries to bring in their groceries in one go. So that minimizes the amount of time you would see them outside anyways. Think about it.
That's totally not true. Next.
Live in a simulation. A holographic reality that's being projected through our consciousness. Your reality cannot and will not change until the state of your consciousness changes. See, most people in the world are not conscious. They're not really awake. They're not really living. They're just existing. See, when you become conscious of the fact that you're in the simulation, now you gain the ability to reprogram and manipulate it. But if you don't know that you're in the game, you'll always get played. Your consciousness isn't limited to your physical body. It's infinite. It's our perception of our consciousness that's limited. That's why you can take psychedelics or go into a deep meditative state and see beyond the simulation. When you perceive reality from a higher state of consciousness, you're no longer operating as a victim. You no longer feel trapped or depressed or confused. You feel totally empowered and confident in your ability to create. Changing your internal spiritual awareness is the key to changing your physical life.
Just work on the man in the mirror. That sounds a little goofy.
Life just feels off. Something just feels off about life, bro, and I can't put a finger on it. I don't know if it's due to inflation. I don't know if it's due to the fake foods. I don't know if it's due to the bull crap media we being force fed on these apps. But something's definitely up. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. You know what they say, the older you get, the more you see life for what it really is. You always hear how people's like, oh, we living in a simulation, we in the Matrix. I'm convinced, bro, we really in the Matrix, bro, because all this stuff feels fake. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful. I'm blessed. God holds it down for me. I'm in good hands, but these vibes, bro, it's just...
Maybe that's why people do such bad things in this world. They all think it's a video game where they're going to respawn somewhere else.
Something going on. Y'all, please let me know if I'm tripping, bro, because I know I'm not tripping right now. In the meantime, all you could do is just stay balanced, stay in harmony, stay disciplined, and don't let this world consume you.
I agree with that.
Finally realized, this cannot be real life. We must live in a simulation or a dream, or when COVID happened and we got locked down, we got knocked into an alternate universe, something. The conspiracy theories for that shit are starting to look promising. You just go, I don't really go outside. I go to the gym each and every day. I start my day at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm done at 7. I go to the gym, I go home, sometimes I go fishing, and sometimes I go out to eat. That's pretty much it, right? So the other day I went to the mall. I'm sitting outside the mall, we're waiting to go into a restaurant, and I'm just watching and looking around, and we are living in a freak show. When I was younger, we used to go to the Allentown Fair, and I used to always ask my dad to let us go into the freak show. You go in there, you got the bearded lady, the world's strongest man. That's what's walking around now. Like all the creatures that we would pay for to see at the freak show, those are the normal people now. Yeah, kids dressed like unicorns and cats, and then you got obese, morbidly obese. Everyone's out of shape. Everyone is unhealthy and out of shape. But the women that are walking around wearing like crop tops, and I'm not just saying like they're a little bit of their belly showing. No, like they're wearing crop tops and they actually have their whole stomach out. Belly button out, the navel hair showing, it's just hanging over their crotch. Like they're just walking around thinking they're cute because there's some weird horny pervert that's in their DMs on social media talking about, damn, looking good, thick girls mad. Like, yo, it's crazy. Then you got the election. Like, this shit blows my mind. I am not political in any way. I don't come from a political family. I did time in prison. I know that the government doesn't give two shits about us. It's just, and it's comical to watch people argue over this shit like they think they really matter. Like we pay taxes and we buy shit, and that's all that really matters. They don't give a shit about us. They pretend because they need our votes, but they're playing their own game. They're playing their own game over there, and we're just here for the show and to argue and do dumb shit. Because to sit there and watch a senile man mumble on stage for the last 4 years, and people actually like, no, Joe Biden's doing a great job. The guy can't even finish a sentence. He can't walk up steps. He can't finish a sentence. He doesn't know where he's at, what his name is, what your name is, what the president of Ukraine's name is, what his vice president's name is. He don't know anything. Then he drops out. And then I see people like John Legend, like he's such a selfless man. He's dropping out because for the people of this country. He didn't even know he was dropping out. Someone told him like, Joe, we're dropping you out tomorrow. And he's like, oh, okay. Can we go get some ice cream? Like he doesn't know what the hell going on. Then you got Trump. He got shot in his ear. Like he's not, I don't dislike the guy. I don't like the guy. He's crazy, but he is a better fit than what the hell we just had. But
with that being said, let's go for a walk. Go get your shoes. Let's do this. Look at it. 4 different planes in the air there. Half of them are alien. Hi, venters! Guys, I want you to imagine a scenario because I think it's happening to me. Imagine laying your head down to go to sleep and imagine not being able to fall asleep, insomnia. What I'm thinking is happening is I'm going to sleep, but I think I'm dreaming that I'm awake. Does that sound crazy or what? Because how else would you explain when I come to the next morning? I say come to because I just feel like I basically rolled out of bed and didn't sleep. But I'm not tired. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I'm actually half thinking that maybe, just maybe, I'm actually sleeping and I'm dreaming that I'm awake, as crazy as that sounds. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day. I have been running late the whole day because, again, this morning, I basically had insomnia last night, or at least I thought I did. But I don't feel like down and drug out and or anything like that. But I didn't really watch any videos that we could talk about, but there is something that I think we should talk about, and I'm sure you guys noticed it. We have a situation where Vladimir Putin the other day was sending these certain missiles. I'm sure you guys saw the pictures just like everybody else has, where these missiles are coming down so fast that the best way I could describe it to people was it almost looked like a lightning strike coming down. And I'm sure you guys heard that apparently these things can move like between 2 and 3 miles per second, or it might be between 2 and 3 kilometers per second. But when you're talking about distances like that, going that quick, to the human eye, it literally looks like a strike of lightning. And it's one of those things where it kind of begs the question, do you think an administration, the Biden administration, on their way out, because they're only going to be in office for another month and a half, right? Do you think it's kind of tacky and off that they're actually trying to do these maneuvers with, with Putin, so to speak, when you're literally only going to be in the game for another 45 or 50 days? Because wouldn't it be a darn shame if all of a sudden the new administration comes in and all of a sudden they're smack dab into, World War III? I don't know about you guys, but to me, that sounds kind of crazy. I feel bad. It's all dark. It's only 4 something, but my goodness, we're getting to that time of the year where it gets dark by 5 o'clock. Holy moly. Anyway, I just want to let you guys know that I'm feeling good despite this recent bout of insomnia. Mala, I think you were telling me that sometimes you have a hard time sleeping. I don't know how to explain this. I haven't had this in a long, long time. There's always a couple of days out of the year where I have trouble sleeping, but it's usually one day and then, maybe 6 or 7 months later, maybe another day. This is the only time where I've had it like 2 out of the last 3 or 4 days. But again, there's a piece of me that's thinking I'm sleeping and just dreaming that I'm awake because I really feel full of energy and stuff. So kind of interesting. You guys are probably getting ready to watch Monday Night Football. The only problem is it's Tuesday for you guys. So you guys are probably can only remember about yesterday's game. I normally wake up in the morning, watch a couple YouTube videos, find one that I find interesting, and then I share it with you guys. But you guys got to remember, TWMGO, the walk must go on. You guys are going to have a lot of scenarios like this for the rest of your life where people are going to say, hey, Aunt Patty, we're going to a movie in 45 minutes. Get dressed. Let's go. And that's where you have to be strong and say, hey, before we head out the door, I'm going to take that 15 or 20-minute walk. Guys, it's the difference between being able to tackle your weight issues or being able to ignore them, because let's be honest, life always comes up. You don't want to be that person that, hey, I haven't slept for 2 or 3 days, so there goes my exercise routine, right? You want to keep those things going regardless. Also, when I walk and when I eat well, I do tend to sleep better. So the last thing I want to do is get out of my routine just because I've had a night or two where I didn't necessarily sleep. By the way, when you sit there with your head on the pillow, or lay there with your head on the pillow, and you feel like you're begging yourself to go to sleep and it just doesn't happen, that has got to be the absolute worst feeling. But anyway, back to what I was saying, guys. These weapons that they have nowadays, they don't look much different than a UFO. For example, did you guys see the clouds when those missile strikes were coming down on Ukraine from Russia? The clouds kind of had a ripple effect. And it really did look like something that if you didn't know it was from Russia, you would assume that looks like an alien force attacking us. Which goes back to my earlier thought that I really don't think there are aliens out there. I think there's just some really special weapons, experimental weapons, if you will, that we just haven't quite discovered yet, because they're not meant to be discovered until war. Everything is so top secret nowadays. And you got to remember, things that we think are cool, like the stealth bomber and, the stealth bomber, the triangular looking ship, it's basically just a wing, right? Well, 20 or 30 years ago, people were seeing that. They were taking pictures of it, and they thought it was a bona fide, genuine UFO. Come to find out, it's just a military vehicle. But think about this. We look at the stealth bomber and we think, wow, what an incredible weapon. What an incredible fighting system that we have there. But that's like 20 or 30-year-old technology. By the way, whenever I used to look at a Lamborghini, you remember looking at a Lamborghini or a Ferrari way back in the 80s? You would look at that car and you would think, wow, what a neat car. It looks like a rocket. But if you look at Ferraris and Lamborghinis now in the year 2024, don't they still look the same? They still look like rockets, right? And they're cars. But they look so neat, yet if you think about it, the body type of a Lamborghini and Ferrari haven't really changed over the last 30 or 40 years. They're pretty much the same vehicle, or at least they look the same to the eyeball. I think it was Tom Selleck, Lily, that had a Ferrari on Magnum PI. Maybe you guys could let me know down in the comments if I'm remembering that right or remembering it wrong. But I remember in the commercial or the trailer, when that show would start, they would show Tom Selleck come up with that crazy mustache that everybody loved, right? And he'd be in that nice red Ferrari. By the way, if you're gonna get a Ferrari, it's gotta be red. It's got to be red. Now with the Lamborghini, you can go yellow, you could go white, black, blue, whatever. But if you're going to get a Ferrari, I think we can all agree, you got to go with the red. So let's be honest. If all of a sudden Donald Trump took over the presidency in the next couple of months, and then all of a sudden we were smack dab in World War III, I think it would be really easy to say, see, look, this new guy's in as the president. He's already getting us into World War III. But that would only be if you were to ignore the stuff that's going on now. And that's why I think it's really crazy that the administration that we're under right now, this Biden administration, I think it's really crazy that they're giving Ukraine the ability to use these long ICBMs or whatever they are, right? These intercontinental ballistic missiles to shoot into the heart of Russia. Because Russia makes a good point if you think about it. If these missiles all say property of the USA on them, then in essence, it's the USA attacking Russia. And if that happens, I don't think we could blame them if they decide that they want to, do something about it. What would you do if somebody, clubbed you with a bat and then they left the bat there right next to you, right? And the next day you're getting ready to go into the hospital and then the police come and they confiscate that bat and it says property of, and it's your next door neighbor's bat. Even though you know it wasn't your next door neighbor that did it, there would still be a piece of you that would be a little upset at your next door neighbor because it was his bat. And I fear that that's kind of what's happening with this situation here. I think we're literally playing with fire, and the only people that are going to get screwed on it potentially are people like you and me. Could you imagine if all of a sudden we have missiles firing down? And then you'd have to break it down. Why do we have missiles firing down? Because of some country called Ukraine that's on another side of the world that pretty much no one knows where it is. If you were to if you told them to point it out on a map, that is nuts. By the way, you know as well as I do that a lot of Republicans have been complaining that President Biden doesn't really know where he is. He doesn't know what day of the week it is. He doesn't remember his middle name. So when you see him making these decisions to do these tactical warfare type situations or exploits, whatever you want to call them, to me it comes across as really scary because you guys know as well as I do, it is not him making these decisions. So the big question is, who the heck is in charge? I don't think it's Kamala. I don't think it's Mrs. Biden either. And that's where it starts to get scary. Who the heck is making these decisions? Does anybody else freak out about that? I mean, regardless of what side you're on, you would like to think that the president is making a right choice or a right decision. And I think we can all agree there is no way that the president is making any of these choices. Does it ever amaze you how you can walk over some rocks and a rock will stick into the bottom of the treading on your shoe, or maybe you'll flip a rock up and it'll go into your shoe? One of those things that you could never do on purpose, but as you're just walking, they tend to cling onto your shoes, and before you know it, you're making a tapping sound with every single step you take. For some reason I feel rushed. I think you guys have been watching enough of my videos that you don't really care if I rush through a video or not. So I think I'm just gonna slow down, relax. Sometimes we get this way, right, where we feel rushed to do something. Maybe that's how stress starts to pervade our life. You ever have that where you're kind of relaxed and then all of a sudden maybe your kids say, "Dad, Mom, we gotta go, get the keys." And before you know it, you're rushing. You don't even have enough time to brush your teeth or to comb your hair, right? All you're thinking about doing is just getting moving as fast as you can. That's why I'm a big proponent in being proactive, having a game plan. Holy moly, I'm about ready to throw away my phone. It's cruel. Do you realize that just since you guys have been walking with me here for the last 10 minutes, I've had 5 phone calls come in? That's why I keep reaching over to push the button on the side. All right, I always talk about this. What would you guys do if your next door neighbor literally had a used car lot in front of his house? Does anybody else look at this and think it's kind of tacky and wrong? I just look at it and I think, golly, I would hate to be this guy's neighbor. Bad enough he doesn't give a shit about his yard, but when he has a car dealership out here, guess what? He doesn't care about your yard either. He's actually got cars over there on the next door neighbor's yard because I think that next door neighbor moved. So that means when the new person takes over, you got to hope that that guy moves his car without having to be asked. But I think we all know human nature. Someone's going to have to do the uncomfortable knock on the door. Can you move your cars out of my yard? You piece of shit! That lady saw me say that. Were any of you guys tripping out when I turned the camera yesterday and I showed you that diesel that was down the street? There was a piece of me, just a small piece, that wanted to pretty much call the police and be like, hey, I think that diesel that was stolen in Houston, I think it's down here in Arizona. But then I thought the better of it. Do you realize how many red colored diesel rigs are out there? Probably 1 million. So if any of you guys were tripping out like, oh my God, Jesse stumbled upon the missing stolen big rig, just know that that thought came across my mind too. But what are the odds? The odds are probably 1 million to 1, right? There's got to be 1 million of those red diesels. But if you were honestly thinking that is the vehicle that was stolen, let me know down in the comments. I thought it was really funny and interesting. There's a lot of times where these little things happen, and it really does lead me to believe that we're in some sort of simulation. And let's say all of us were in another world, and this was just a video game that we were all playing together. When people leave this world to go to the next, right, they pass away. If this is just a simulation, then they don't die. They just reopen their eyes in the world that we all really live in. And let me ask you a question. If you just opened your eyes and you were in a different world, only to find out that this world was simply a video game, and you still had friends and family members in this world, wouldn't there be a piece of you that would want to do things like throw up a red diesel when someone's talking about a diesel truck that was just stolen, right? Someone that would have it where you're talking about a friend and all of a sudden that friend calls you out of the blue, or better yet, his brother that does. I think that stuff is interesting because that's what I would do. If I woke up tomorrow and I was in a different world and I found out that Earth was just a video game we were all playing, and that we still had friends and family playing that video game, I would literally invest hundreds of hours just to mess with like my son and my daughter, my mom, my family members and friends. I would literally be the guy that every time they were talking about something, I would throw out a piece of paper that had whatever they were talking about, and I would have it fly out of the sky and land at their feet. Are there any of you that would join me in this game of just playing with the Earthlings? That's what we'll call this game, playing with the Earthlings. That's what I would do. True story. By the way, is there a theoretical way that we could all be right? Is there a way that there could be no God, yet totally be a God, that we could have that God in this simulation? I think so. Imagine a guy owns a house. We'll call him Big God. And imagine his son Jesus is in a bedroom playing a video game that we'll call Earth. The video game would be the simulation. The religious head would be Jesus. His father would be the owner of the home with many rooms, right? And before you know it, every single thing that we think are disagreements between us were just parts of the video game. Now, 10 years ago, if anybody would have mentioned simulation theory, other than the occasional Matrix fan, everybody would have shook their head and said, no, But the more that we are on this earth, the more these weird things happen, the more I can't help but think we're in a god-darn simulation. I really feel that way. And I think that there's absolutely no reason why we can't be in a simulation and still believe in religion and God and all those things. Why we still can't yearn to be with people after they're gone. Some people say that they've gone through that near-death experience, and have you noticed that they all describe the same near-death experience, guys? It goes like this. They're in a tunnel. They see a light at the end of the tunnel. They feel a warmth around them. You guys have all heard this, right? They see colors that they totally aren't used to seeing on Earth. Well, if Earth never had those extra colors, it's really hard to imagine such a thing until you see it. But at the same time, look up NDEs, near-death experiences, here on YouTube. You'll see that almost everybody says the same thing. A lot of people say that this is actually a movie and we're all playing our part, our character, so to speak. And it's funny because if you watch a movie, what happens at the very end? The screen goes black and then the credits roll. There's some times where I tell myself, I bet when we die, that's what happens. You see a black screen and then the credits start to roll. And if that did happen, wouldn't that be kind of neat? It would say Mother, played by Cornelia Jameson, right? Father, played by Jimmy Jameson. By the way, when I used to look up my dad online, I always thought his name was James, because most people named Jimmy, their name is James. So I was always looking for James Jameson. Never found him. So I always thought, oh, he's just disappeared somewhere, right? No, you figure my mom would know that the man she had a child with was not named James. His name is actually Jimmy. It's on his birth certificate. So imagine my dumb ass for my whole life trying to Google my dad is sitting here Googling James Jameson when the guy's name is Jimmy. It's crazy. And then on a bad day, you'll be like, well, maybe your mother told you false information on purpose. Didn't your mom tell you your dad lived in Oklahoma City when all the time he lived right down the street? Bum, bum, bum. Sometimes people feel like their parents are against them. I'm one of those that as I get older, I realize everyone just tries to do the best that they can do, right? Sometimes the best you can do is it works out, and sometimes, no matter how hard you try, it just doesn't work out, you know? But one thing that I decided long ago was I didn't want to blame my lack of a relationship with my dad on my mom. Because the reality is my dad knew I was alive and well just down the street. He could have done a number of things to get in touch with me. I say this because about 30 years ago I went to a family reunion. And the family reunion was on my dad's side, but he wasn't there. Supposedly he was wherever he was. He just wasn't there. But I had a lot of people that came up to me and they said, hey, Jesse, can we talk to you privately? So they pulled me off to the side and they were like, hey, we want you to know that your dad always wanted you to be in his life, but your mom just made it darn near impossible. And see, here's the thing. I knew even then, as a teenager, because I think at the time I was 17 or 18, I knew even then that if a person really wants to do something, by golly, there's not going to be anybody that stops them. And if I had a child that lived a handful of miles down the street, I wouldn't wait forever and a day to never see him or her unless I just didn't want to see him or her. So while I do believe that I missed out on being in my dad's life, and I think he missed out by not being in my life, I don't want to put that on my mom. And I could tell when I went to this family reunion that they were ultimately trying to put it on my mom. Now, I think my mom, when I was a little one, probably did keep him away because of the fact that, he was on drugs and stuff. And that's understandable. I don't think drug addicts should be around little kids by any means, right? But if what my other family was telling me is true, that guy had plenty of time to sober up, and my dad had plenty of time to reach out to me. And the fact that he chose to just go up, and pass away without ever giving me one phone call or one email or one reach out on Facebook, I think it really says a lot about the fact that he just didn't want to bother. So while I love my dad and I forgive my dad and I hope one day I'm reunited and get to spend some time with him in the afterlife, obviously, there's still a piece of me that's really upset about it. But see, here's the thing. I can't just put that on my dad. We legitimately live in a world where everybody is divided now. Nobody gets along. Parents don't get along with kids, but parents don't even get along with their parents either. It's really, really a sad deal. If anybody else agrees with me that it's a sad deal, let me know down below. And if anyone else was like me, where they literally went through their whole life without one of their parents in their lives, share that with me. And if you had a situation like I did, where you literally found out that one of your parents has been dead for 5 years, guys, I find that embarrassing. Could you imagine you try to look for somebody in your life and then only to find out that you missed them by 5 years? It's sad, but at the same time, it's infuriating. I just can't believe that this guy would have a son on the planet and he never ever went out of his way to try to reach him. I find that extremely sad. Could you imagine if my dad was still alive, I'd be going over to his house doing walk, talk, vent with him? That'd be a fun time. So many people told me, your dad is the life of the party. He tells so many jokes. Everybody loves your dad. And it's like, God, for a great person that's so much fun around complete strangers, to not want to be in their own son's life, God, very, very disappointing. So Dad, if you can hear me, I forgive you, I love you, I can't wait to see you someday, but I just can't believe that I was never even that much important to you, that you would try to see me. Very, very disappointing. That's the one thing that disappoints me about this life. When we're young, they tell us that we can aspire to do anything we want to in the world, and we can become whatever we want to. But the reality is you can't. I can't be a pro basketball player. You know why? Because I got my dad's genes. Holy shit. 5'9.5" I am. My dad was like 5'7.5", 5'8". So I'm even lucky to be 5'9", if you know what I mean. Holy crap, if I would have been 5'7", that would have been really disappointing. Because as crazy as this sounds, when you're 5'9", 5'9.5", you feel like you're closer to 6 foot. Whereas when you're 5'6" or 5'7", you almost feel like you're closer to 5 foot tall, you know? Phone call number 8. Golly. You guys want to know why I don't change my phone so that I don't get those calls? Because I'm hoping my son gives me a call, and one of these days he's going to call, and because of these darn telemarketers, I'll probably ignore the call. That's one of those things where it's like, man, I wish the telemarketers were actually Americans earning the money. Even if they're scamming us, I would rather have it be Americans scamming us than people from another country. I can't believe nobody ever brings it up to the government to stop these darn phone calls. Anyway, guys, forgive me, not the best walk today, but you know what? Sometimes you just got to put your shoes on and get going regardless. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Venture for life. I'll see you tomorrow.